In this video, we'll be taking a look at 3 NHL games happening on December 13, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 6 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 3 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Edmonton Oilers versus Toronto Maple Leafs. On one side, you have Edmonton rolling into town feeling pretty good about themselves, sitting at 14-11-6 and fresh off a statement win where that top line looked downright terrifying again. The vibe around them right now is familiar, long road trip coming, star center dealing out assists like it is a video game, secondary guys chipping in just enough to make you wonder if the heater keeps going. When this team starts stacking highlights, the betting market usually swings hard in their favor, and you can almost feel casual money gravitating to the road favorite just because those names are so loud. On the other side, Toronto's in a very different emotional pocket. This is a 14-11-5 team that has been living on fine margins, dropping a 3-2 heartbreaker to San Jose in overtime last night after leading and then letting it slip late. The home record, 9-4-5, tells a quieter story than the headlines. They are not blowing teams out, but they are hanging in almost every game at Scotiabank and forcing you to sweat every third period. Toronto right now feels like that coworker who always finishes the project 5 minutes before the deadline. Not pretty, not clean, but usually still in the game when it matters. Injuries do paint a messy picture, and that is where most Leafs fans are already stressed before the puck even drops. The blue line has been pulled apart. Brandon Carlo had foot surgery and is out indefinitely. Chris Tanev is on injured reserve waiting on a second opinion, and Marshall Rifai has been fighting his way back with a wrist issue, with talk that he might be ready right around this game. Joseph Woll is on injured reserve and not expected tonight. Anthony Stolarz is nowhere near returning, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson is sitting in that frustrating "we will see how he feels on game day" bucket after that ankle scare against the Sharks. So yes, it looks ugly on paper for Toronto, and that is exactly why the number sits with Edmonton as the small road favorite and Toronto priced as the slightly disrespected home dog. The public eye goes straight to the road team's star power and the Leafs' injury list. Here is the thing, though. Market numbers often react to the noise first and the structure second. Underneath all that, you have a home team that still drives more shots than Edmonton, kills penalties better than it has in any recent season, and has a rookie goalie playing well enough that the bench actually trusts its defensive game again. Meanwhile, Edmonton is winning, but it is carrying just enough defensive looseness and just enough injury drag on its own depth that asking them to come into a tough building with all the travel and emotion of the last week and win this by margin is not exactly a free square. This is one of those spots where the matchup feels closer than the sticker on the odds board, and when that happens, backing the team with the crowd behind it, the last change, and a little extra desperation often makes more sense than joining the bandwagon that already left the station. As our first pick for this matchup, the Toronto Maple Leafs money line is our full game side pick. The total is where your brain wants to scream track meet before you even look at a number. Edmonton, Toronto, star power all over the ice. That 5-4 kind of game that lives rent-free in your memory from years of watching these rosters light people up. Odds makers hang a number in the mid-sixes, and it feels almost rude not to assume goals will just pour in on Saturday night hockey. But once you slow down for a second, the way these two teams are actually playing right now tells a different, much more patient story. Edmonton has had its explosive nights, no question, but their season scoring rate is floating around that 3.3 goals per game mark. Toronto, for all the reputations of its forwards, is sitting in that same neighborhood, about 3.3 goals per game, and its last little stretch has had more squeeze and grind than pond hockey. They just played a 2-1 shootout loss to Montreal and a 3-2 overtime loss to San Jose. And the game where Dennis Hildeby grabbed his first career shutout against Tampa might be the best picture of what their coaching staff actually wants games to feel like right now. Tight, controlled, with very little free offense. Special teams are a big part of why the ceiling on this total feels capped. Edmonton's power play is still terrifying on paper, comfortably north of 30%, which sounds like an argument for goals, but Toronto's penalty kill is the best version it has been in years, and the Leafs are staying out of the box more than they usually do, living right around 8 penalty minutes per game. That means fewer chances for that road power play to just tee off. On the flip side, Toronto's own power play is actually lagging behind its reputation this season, stuck in the mid-teens, so you cannot simply pencil in a man advantage goal for them every night like you might have in past years. Put those together and you get a game script where a lot of 5-on-5 minutes are played fairly straight up, not chaos every whistle, more like a chess match with occasional breakdowns. Goaltending leans toward a lower scoring feel too, even if the names are not as glamorous as some people might like. Dennis Hildeby is coming off a shutout and a run of games where his save percentage over his last handful of appearances has been elite, and Toronto's team structure in front of him has actually tightened as the blue line has thinned, almost out of necessity. On the other bench, Tristan Jarry arrives in Edmonton with a goals against average right around 2.66 and a save percentage around .909 this season, which is exactly the profile of a goalie who can steal an undernight just by calmly doing his job and swallowing that one extra rebound. Mix that with a road team that just poured out a ton of emotion in a comeback game and then followed it up with a big statement win, and it is very reasonable to expect a small drop in finishing sharpness, a bit more dump and change, and a few more safe decisions in the neutral zone. So while the logos and star power scream offense, the current reality leans the other way. Two teams scoring at similar mid-range rates, a road group with some injury drag on its forward depth, a home side that is trying to win by structure, not by trading odd-man rushes. The total number here invites people to dream of a 7 or 8 goal carnival, but the way these benches are actually set up right now points much more towards something like a 3-2 type of scoreline with long stretches of cautious, playoff-style hockey rather than a mid-October track meet. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Washington Capitals versus Winnipeg Jets. This matchup in Winnipeg has a very particular feel to it already. You have one team that feeds off home energy and waves of pressure, and another that quietly prefers when everything slows down and turns into a patience contest. It is less about fireworks and more about who controls the rhythm. Washington has leaned into that slower rhythm lately, leaning on structure, layers in the neutral zone, and a kind of calm, almost stubborn discipline that can make games feel like a chess clock is ticking in the background instead of a goal horn. Winnipeg at home still carries that reputation for being a tough trip, crowd loud, boards lively, the whole bit. But the gap between what people think this building is and what it actually plays like in tight, structured games has narrowed a little. When the tempo drops and chances are hard to come by, the advantage can shift toward the team that is comfortable being patient rather than feeding off chaos. Washington has gotten better at those little details that do not show on a score sheet, like clean line changes, smart support on backchecks, and picking their spots to press rather than chasing every loose puck. In that kind of setting, the Jets can get just a bit antsy. They like to build in waves, stringing together fast counterattacks and letting the building do half the work. When that flow keeps getting interrupted by controlled exits and safe dump-ins, frustration creeps in, and frustrated teams tend to force passes through traffic or step up at the wrong time in the neutral zone. That is exactly the type of environment where a visiting group that is comfortable dragging things into the mud can hang around, tilt a few key shifts their way, and turn a tough road stop into a very manageable spot. As our first pick for this matchup, the Washington Capitals money line is our full game side pick. Switching over to the total, this matchup feels very different from what you might expect if you only remembered how these teams played a couple of seasons ago. Back then, you might almost pencil in a higher number just on reputation alone, dangerous power plays, loose moments, and plenty of defensive lapses. Now the mindset on both benches has shifted closer to control than to chaos, especially in these cross-conference games where there is not much emotional history to push things off the rails early. Winnipeg has shown it is perfectly willing to sit in a low-event game for long stretches, especially in second periods where coaches get a bit more conservative and line matching turns into a tug of war. Washington, for its part, has leaned into that same idea, trading a few rush chances for cleaner exits and a safer neutral zone, trusting that they can wait out mistakes instead of forcing the issue. That kind of mutual understanding usually pulls totals down quietly, not with one huge trend, but with a lot of little decisions that keep shot quality modest and the slot relatively clean. The longer a game like this stays tight, something like 0-0 or 1-1 deep into the second or even early third, the more every shift starts to feel like a small playoff moment. Coaches shorten benches a touch. Defensemen stay a little more cautious at the offensive blue line. Forwards chip pucks past pressure instead of trying that extra move at the line. All of those tiny choices nudge the game away from a track meet and toward a more measured, controlled pace. Special teams still matter, of course, but both sides know that gifting easy power plays through sloppy penalties is one of the few ways this kind of matchup can really open up. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Florida Panthers versus Dallas Stars. You have the two-time defending champions rolling into Dallas at the tail end of a mountain swing through Utah and Colorado, finishing with that 6-2 punch in Denver on Thursday night. It is their third game in 4 nights, all on the road, so the miles are real and the legs are probably a little heavy, even for a group that has forgotten what a quiet spring looks like. On the other side, Dallas is waiting at home, back at American Airlines Center after a long stretch of hockey that wrapped up in Minnesota on Thursday, and that building has quietly turned into one of the tougher stops on the map. They are 10-4-1 at home. They have stacked up a 4-game home win streak, and the market is treating them like it too, pricing them as a solid but not outrageous home favorite on the money line with that classic puck line sitting out there for anyone who wants to live a little dangerously. Florida, for all the banners and rings, has been living a lot closer to the edge this regular season, sitting at 15-13-2 overall and 5-7-0 away from home in the messy middle of the Atlantic, while Dallas sits at 21-6-5 and near the top of a brutal Central Division. The funny part is that Florida still feels like the big brother in this relationship because they already took the first meeting this season 4-3 in a shootout in Sunrise and have rattled off 5 straight wins in the series, so there is a bit of a can we please beat these guys once tension hanging over the crowd before the puck even drops. If you look at who is actually on the ice though, the dynamic tilts in a different direction. Dallas still has its main offensive engines rolling, with Mikko Rantanen and Jason Robertson sitting on top of the team scoring chart and staying on the right side of the injury report. Behind them, the Stars are juggling some real absences, with Tyler Seguin and young defender Leon Beichsel parked on long-term injured reserve and Ilya Lyubushkin ruled out, plus Niels Lundqvist and Rupe Hintz sitting in that annoying day-to-day bucket that keeps coaches up at night. Florida shows up with Brad Marchand as their statistical and emotional driver right now, which is a sentence that would have sounded bizarre a couple of years ago but now feels completely normal, and he is good to go. The problem for them is that one of their usual chaos creators, Matthew Tkachuk, is stuck on injured reserve until at least the middle of the month, and depth piece Cole Schwindt is shelved into January, so a roster that used to overwhelm you in waves feels a little thinner. When you line it all up, you get a Stars group that is scoring more on average, allowing less, and owning a real special teams edge. Their power play is humming around the low 30s while Florida's sits closer to the high teens. And their penalty kill has been more reliable as well. Combine that with the rest advantage, the home rink, and the quiet chip on their shoulder after losing yet again to the same opponent a few weeks ago, and it paints a picture of a spot where the home side has a very real path to controlling the territory, the pace, and most of the high-danger chances, even while they are respecting the champs on the other bench. As our first pick for this matchup, the Dallas Stars to cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Dallas is averaging right around 3.5 goals per night. Florida sits a touch above 3, and if you just mash those numbers together, you already land in that 6-goal neighborhood where every shift feels like it might tip the balance one way or the other. Florida's defensive profile nudges things further in that direction. They are allowing just over 3.25 goals per game, and that is before you even factor in this specific stretch, where they just played at altitude on back-to-back nights and 8-6 in Denver. This is a team that often lives by the sword. When the Panthers get to 3 or more, they have banked wins at a very strong clip, and when they do not, the whole thing tilts against them pretty fast, which usually means that if they are in the mix in the third period, they are pressing and taking some risks. Dallas does not actually need a pile of shots to put up a crooked number, which matters a lot for a total. Their attack is efficient, almost annoyingly so if you are on the other side, and that power play has turned into a cheat code, with the Stars carrying a 10-1-0 record in games where they manage even a single power play goal. Florida's penalty kill is solid but not bulletproof, and with some of their regulars missing and minutes getting stretched, cracks can show in the second half of games like this, especially after a long trip. Add in the recent schedules for both teams, the fact that both blue lines are missing a few pieces, and the reality that these non-divisional matchups sometimes loosen up once you get past the opening feeling out stretch, and you can picture a game that drifts toward 4-2 or 4-3 far more easily than something stuck at 2-1. You also get the modern empty net lottery at the end, when a one-goal game with the goalie pulled can turn into a 2-goal margin and push a total over in a heartbeat, or even bring a late under back from the dead if the trailing team cashes a frantic scramble in front. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.